Good morning. Good morning. Your journey as a founder and a social impact leader will always be an uphill battle unless you master this one thing. Hey, everybody, I'm Carlisha Bradley. I'm the founder and CEO of Amplify for Women. I'm a social impact executive leader with over a decade of experience. I've led teams to transformational outcomes right here in the United States, internationally, and through the work that I do, not only with my social impact organization, Women Empowering Nations, that I started 15 years ago. It's reached over 9,000 young women in 23 countries, but I'm also the founder of Amplify for Women. We are a leadership consulting firm that supports women at the intersection of personal branding, public speaking, and transformational leadership. So, right now, we're in day two of a series called Stepping into the Spotlight. And yesterday, we got started on this journey. We started touching on some of the elements that you might be experiencing if you're sitting right in this seat. If you have tuned into this series, you have that feeling inside of you that something is missing to get you to the next level. You are a driven hard worker, you're ambitious, you're passionate about the work that you do, but that passion has not necessarily translated into the type of fruit that you want to see within your organization or within your business. And I ripped off the band aid yesterday. I told y'all the real truth. What got you to the seat that you're sitting in is not going to be what gets you to the next level. But you were in store for a great journey throughout this series and bite sized pieces to let you know what it takes to get there, to take away the guesswork. Because a lot of times when we're founders or we're leading for social impact, you don't know what you don't know. You are just trying to make it through the day to day. But I'm here with you on your journey as your coach, as your guide, to pull you up onto the balcony, to look at the 70,000-foot view of what you're building, of what's important, and teaching you how to prioritize what matters most. Which gets me into our conversation today. Today, we're talking about the first step that you must take if you're working to move from surviving to thriving. We're talking about your greatest asset. So, drop in the chat for me what you perceive to be the greatest asset within your organization that you're leading, within the company that you're founding. What do you perceive to be the greatest asset of what you're building? For me, when I have worked in organizations or on teams, I thought about, well, the impact, or I would think about the business. Is it the technology? Is this the innovation, the greatest asset, the core piece that is our secret sauce that makes it unique? A lot of times we can point to many things, whether it's resources, people that we have recruited on the team, intellectual property, and the ideas, but truthfully, when you're sitting in that seat of executive leadership or on your path to executive leadership in the social impact space, and when you're sitting in that seat as the founder of a company and an organization, you are the greatest asset. It's you. And let me unpack that a little bit more. So, right now, you, as I mentioned in our first part of this series, you've been working hard. You are the person who has laid the groundwork. You might be the person who's doing some of the behind the scenes pieces, which causes you to take work home or figure out and navigate how to do multiple tasks. Because you're working so hard on the business, you are not getting that chance to pull up and to really think about the big picture and to grow the work and the vision of the organization. You want your joy back. You want that spark of remembering why you started this work, why it's important, and what truly matters to you. But you're also in this space of being like right there on the cusp of burnout. You're wondering, is this sustainable? Can I make it through this journey? And that's what brings in this conversation about the greatest asset is you. So today we're going to talk about how you leverage that asset and also how you take care of that asset. Because there's this common misconception when we think about businesses or organizations and the things that we're running. A lot of the metrics that are core to talk about the effectiveness of what we do is critical. It's so important. But I also think that there's a great importance that sometimes people miss in the conversation or don't lift up. It's the fact that people invest in people. People invest in people. And oftentimes, when I see leaders who are leading businesses and leading organizations, they're talking about the what, but they aren't bringing to the forefront the who for people to connect with you, to invest in your vision as the leader, in growing this organization and sharing more of yourself. So that brings into this conversation something that I love to talk about, which is your executive presence. Now, I want to tell you a couple things that executive presence is not, because I've had misconceptions throughout my career on what executive presence is, and also realizing that that was actually respectability politics, which was trying to fit into dominant culture norms, dressing, speaking, code switching. That's not executive presence. When you are a founder or you're leading for social change, executive presence is critical. It is what goes before you into the room. It's the mindset that you have to embody. It is the way that you get people to want to invest in you, an amazing person. So I'm going to give you these 4 C's of executive presence. The first one is right there at the base level. We touched on it a little bit yesterday. I gave you a resource yesterday to support with it, but it's your character. It's understanding what you believe, what you value, what you stand for. And I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about your organization. So I know a lot of you can tell me and list out all of the values of the organizations that you lead. But when we switch over that conversation to say, okay, well, what are your personal values and how do those align to your organizations? It's like I've conflated the two my whole time because a lot of my identity is tied up in the work. But you have to take the time to do the self work to elevate your executive presence. So character is right there at the bottom. If we're thinking about a pyramid, it is the foundational level, okay? So that next level of executive presence is confidence. Confidence. It is simply your belief in yourself. It's the way you walk into the room and own the space. It's mastering the mindset that allows for you to show up in the fullness of your identity with belief in your concepts and ideas. But again, when we think about character, when we think about confidence, that's the internal work. Those are the things that we step into the space with. Now, when we keep going up the layers of this pyramid, we get into what shows up externally. All right. So we've got our character, we've established our confidence. When we get to that third level, this is where we talk about communication. Communication is critical for executive presence. Communication is the ability to articulate your values, your beliefs, your why, that bigger picture of who you are. Again, you are your greatest asset. You are your greatest spokesperson. No one can talk about you better than you, which moves us to our final level of executive presence. We've got our character, we've got our confidence, we're able to communicate. Our last level is connection. Executive presence, leading at high levels, is all about the ways in which you are able to connect, influence, and inspire people to move them to action. As a founder, as a social impact leader, the ways that you show up in your personal brand is going to impact the success of the work that you're doing. So I unpacked a lot right there. If you have questions about what I just shared, please drop them in the chat. Of those 4 C's of executive presence, character, confidence, communication, and connection, drop in the chat for me which one you feel is your greatest strength. Like, girl, I got that. I'm knocking that out of the park. And which of those C's is an area of growth for you? You might be saying, hey, Carlisha, like, I would love for us to dive deeper on this point that you mentioned. And I can definitely chime in answer your questions, do another training video, but let me know in the chat which of these four C's is your greatest strength and which of these four C's do you feel this is an area of growth for me. So when we're moving into the space of understanding that you are your greatest asset, you are the MVP, you're the most valuable player, you are your most valuable product. That's you. Taking on that mindset means that you are going to have to shift in your ability to invest in yourself. We think about, what am I doing for the business? How am I talking about the organization? How am I telling the stories of impact and of other people? But what's the counterintuitive thing that a lot of us don't think about because you're so passionate about the work is that you have to think about how am I telling the story of myself? How am I sharing my personal brand and leveraging this to grow my business, to grow the organization, our reach, our access? How am I moving things forward? Because I'm standing rooted in my character, confidence, communication, and I'm using that ability to connect to transform my career journey and the organization that I'm leading. So here's like these three takeaways when we start talking about ourselves. How do you get to this place of having values-based communication? What are a couple of the things that you should be having on the radar, whether you know these things already, whether you're seeking support on frameworks on how to do this? There's three essentials that I recommend for every leader, founder, and especially social impact leaders. Our work is so unique in the ways that we have to connect with others and understand what matters and share values and mission. You got to be doing this stuff. Okay. The first one is to understand your core values. We talked about it yesterday. I gave a resource. If you missed that resource, go ahead and shoot me a DM saying, hey, I missed it yesterday, but I need it in my life. The second piece of this is when you know and understand your values, being able to share your signature story. Your signature story. Now, a lot of us have, and I'm going to talk about this in our later series. We're going to get into more of public speaking and storytelling. But understanding your signature story and especially how it relates to the work that you're leading and building, it's essential. It should be pretty consistent and it should illuminate those values and those four C's of executive presence. It shares your character. It alludes and speaks to your confidence in leading this work. It allows for your communication verbally to articulate those things. And at the top of that level, you are connecting and you're inspiring and you're moving people to action. And my last piece of this that's essential, and there goes my alarm going off. My last piece of this that's essential is being able to build connections. This space that you're leading in, this next level of leadership, it is not just about the head down, getting the work done, knocking it out of the park. This next level of leadership is going to require a lot more of you. The ways that you show up, the ways that you articulate your brand, and the ways that you're able to influence for change and not just work and do it and knock it out the park. You've got to move at a higher level. So I promised you all, I try to make these bite-sized, concise. I know you're busy and I see you here investing in yourself. Today, we talked about how you take this first step to move from surviving to thriving. And it's switching our mindset and turning on the light bulb to say, hey, I actually am the greatest asset. I need to begin to think about myself as that, to show up with executive presence, to work on my communication and the ways in which I'm telling my story to elevate the company, to grow my personal brand, but to also grow the legacy building impact of the work that I'm leading for change. So, if you are enjoying this series and you want to learn more about how we can work together, I would love for you to schedule a consultation call using the link in the comments or shoot me a DM. We can also talk through some of the services that I offer on your journey to support you to grow in leadership at the intersection of public speaking, personal branding, and transformational leadership. So I will see you right back here tomorrow. I am sharing more strategies and tips, same time, same place. See you soon.